Hello and welcome. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a drop spindle, I weave, I dabble in all sorts of bits and pieces, whatever takes my fancy really. And this is my second video about how to use a peg loom. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. Okay, so here we have the peg loom partway through the project. I've been using this brown colour to create the fabric so far. I'm aiming for basically twice the length of the pegs, so I'm not far off. I will want to do a bit of extra length, so I've got some flaps to go on. So before I will show you how we did this plain weave, which was a nice simple forward and backwards motion through the pegs. Let's do one row back. Oops, just knocking the camera there. So I'm reaching around it to give you the best possible view of what I'm doing. So this is actually quite a straightforward weaving style, very simple approach. So now I'm going to change colour. I mean, I've got a little bit of this left. I could do a few more rows. But given that I'm kind of halfway up the second run through of the pegs, or third run through the pegs, well, I've got basically the peg height there, and I'm about halfway the second peg height. So I'm going to change colour, and I'll do the rest of this peg, move it on a bit, and do a bit extra for the flap. So it's really simple to change colour. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop this around the end peg. Later on I will cut that off. And let's go with this colour next. So I'm going to just pull out a bit of length. That's not a necessary part, just makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to leave a tail at this end. We'll weave them in later and lay it through the pegs, and then carry on weaving as before. My peg loom does sometimes slide around on the table. That's because it's got nothing underneath to grip it in place, no rubber feet or anything. You could put it on a silicone mat, or a bit of cloth, I suppose, if your tablecloth's not moving anywhere. And that'll hold it in place. I sometimes do this on my lap as well. Okay, and that's really all there is to changing colour. So I'm going to carry on weaving in that green for a bit, and I'll come back to you once I've got the length I need and show you how we finish off. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the length now. It's around about twice the length of the pegs. It should be just about enough, so I've cut off the green. And I'm ready to take it off the loom. If I find that it is actually too short once I try and sew the patch together, it's easy enough to just weave another bit of fabric and stitch it on. It's quite forgiving, so I'm not too concerned. But I think it should be just about right, because I'm only going to put in one size of pegs into each pouch, so I'll need to do a second pouch for the other size. So as it's not taking all of the pegs, it should be a good length. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is to take the pegs out and advance the warp. So I'll do that. I'll see, hopefully I won't jog the camera as I'm doing this, because again I am working from behind the camera so that I can see what you see and you get a better view of what I'm doing. Of course that does mean I am sat between what I'm doing and the natural daylight, so swings and roundabouts. You should get an idea of what I'm doing. So yeah, the light's not too shocking today. Oh, where's the hole? There we go. So let's take the other side out, and I'll just neaten up and snug up the weave like I would when I'm normally advancing the warp, and show you how and disattach it from the pegs. Now that's better, I can see what I'm doing now. So just pulling the pegs out of the weave and popping them back in their hole behind. And obviously the nature of this loom, it does mean that you can hear it moving across the table a little bit. But okay, so that's actually sitting quite neat and tidy as it is. I don't need to snug it up too much. So let's flip the loom round. So I'm going to start finishing off on this side. So if you remember, we had holes in the pegs that we put the warp thread through and then looped over. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually take the pegs off the warp and finish off this side before I do the side where we tied the knots. Okay, so I'm just going to start at one end actually. So we'll pull the peg through so that we've got enough slack to take hold of the loop, pull it off the end and pull the warp thread out. So we're going to do that all the way across. This is why I'm starting at this end, because we're having to pull the warp through the weave. We can neaten up the other side and even things out, no problem. But if we'd have done the other side first, we may not have had enough slack to get the pegs off. So that's why I'm doing this side first. Talking among yourselves while to do this. There's not much to say, it's the same action for each peg. Oh, this one doesn't want to go. There we go. So that's all the pegs out of the way, so we can move the loom itself out of the way. So I've now got my fabric detached from the loom. I'm just going to even out a little bit, particularly where the knots were a little bit shorter. Obviously making sure that I'm not pulling my warp threads all the way through, because we're going to need to fasten those off. I just want to make sure I've got enough room to play with. Okay, so all I'm going to do is start from one end, tie a knot. I'm just going to do a double knot, I think. I don't think it particularly matters whether you do single or double. These ends we can weave in later, or if you want you can create a fringe if you're doing like a rug or a mat. I will weave them in as I'm sewing it into a pouch. What I found last time I did this as well was it gave me a good sort of guideline for stitching things together. The one I did before, it's obviously a longer piece, and I ended up stitching extra bits onto the ends because I didn't quite get the length right. And it gave me a good sort of guideline of where to attach those extra bits. and whether you sew the start and finish ends together. It depends very much on whether you want the ridges running lengthwise or widthwise on the fabric. Now this is just how I finish it off. There are probably other ways to knot these warps together. Try not to do them so tight as I distort the fabric. Because after all, I do want this to be a functional item. Now obviously I've used a contrasting warp to the fabric that I've used, the yarn that I've used for the weft. If you use the same colour, these are obviously going to be a lot less noticeable than they are in my version. But I'm okay with that. It's quite a primitive form of weaving, so I don't mind the rough and ready look. Sounds like somebody else is up. Should be the noise in the background. It's fairly early in the morning that I'm doing this today. I say fairly early, it's like 9:30. Which is a bit earlier than I normally film. Okay, so once the cat gets out of the way, Kiki, that's not helpful. So I've turned around the project and I've untied the knots at this end, and just like we knotted at that end, we're going to knot at this end, but because the other end was loops, it's already gone over all the bits that need screwing together. This hasn't, so the threads are going through over to like there's a gap there that needs to seal together, so I'm going to take the two of those together that cover that gap and knot those together. Again, I'm going to do a double knot. This one I'm going to knot to that one, just so that the one on the end has been knotted to something. Just a bit of neatness really, and again I'll be weaving in these ends later. So we're going to knot these two together and then across the gap again. Again, I'm trying not to pull too tight because I don't want to distort the weave. This is basically, you want to make sure you're knotting across where the wefts cross over. So if I pull these two warps apart, you can see there's a bit of an X going on where you've woven the yarn around the pegs, and that's the bit we need to seal up. I'm going to get this done all the way across, and then I'll be weaving in the ends and sewing my pouch together. So I should be able to show that to you in the podcasty roundup for March, which I'll be doing at the beginning of April. So that's all there is to it really. I mean, this is a great form of weaving, make great mats and place settings and things. So yeah, so I'm just going to carry on doing this, and yeah, next time you see it, it'll be sewn up into a pouch. useful and interesting. And obviously if you did, there's more videos like this coming up all the time. I'm aiming to put a video up every weekend. Sometimes that's a podcasty roundup type video of what I've been doing the previous month, and other times it's videos like this where I'm showing you how I do my stuff that I get on with. So yes, if you're interested in more content like that, like and subscribe down below and ding that bell so you get a notification every time I upload. And I will see you soon, but until then, happy crafting and bye bye for now.